Picking up my pack, I started for the crest of the eminence. I have said that in unbroken monotony of the rolling plain that was a source of vague horror to me, but I think my horror was greater when I gained the summit of the mound and looked down at the other side of the immeasurable pit or canyon. Those black recesses the moon had not yet soared high enough to illumine. I felt myself on the edge of the world, peering over the rim into fathomless chaos of eternal night. Through my terror ran curious reminiscences of Paradise Lost, and Satan's hideous climb through the unfashioned realms of darkness. As the moon climbed higher in the sky, I began to see the slopes of the valley were not quite so perpendicular as I had imagined. Ledges and outcrops of rock afforded fairly easily footholds for a descent, whilst after a drop of a few hundred feet, the declivity became very gradual. Urged on by an impulse which I cannot definitely analyze, I scrambled with difficulty down the rocks and stood on the gentlest slope beneath, gazing into the Stygian deeps that where no light yet had penetrated. All at once my attention was captured by a vast singular object on the opposite slope which rose steadily about 100 yards ahead of me, an object that gleamed whitely in the newly bestowed rays of ascending moon. That it was merely a gigantic piece of stone, I soon assured myself, but I was conscious of a distinct impression that its contour and location were not altogether a work of nature. A closer scrutiny filled me with the sensations I cannot express, for despite its enormous magnitude and its position in an abyss, which had yawned at the bottom of the sea since a world was young, I perceived beyond a doubt that the strange object was well-shaped monolith whose massive bulk had known workmanship and perhaps the worship of living and thinking creatures. Dazed and frightened, yet not without a certain thrill of the scientist's or archaeologist's delight, I examined my surroundings more closely. The moon, now near zenith, shone weirdly and vividly above the towering steeps that hemmed in the chasm, and revealed that a far-flung body of water flowed at the bottom, winding out of sight in both directions, almost lapping my feet as I stood on the slope. Across the chasm, the wavelets washed the base of the Cyclean monolith. and the surface I was... Oh, now that got me. I was writing in the system of hieroglyphics unknown to me and unlike anything I'd ever seen in the books, consisting for the most part conventionalized aquatic symbols such as fishes, eels, octopi, crustaceans, mollusks, whales, and the like. Several characters obviously represented marine things and which are unknown to the modern world, but whose decomposing forms I had observed in the ocean-risen plain. It was the pictorial carving, however, that did the most to hold me spellbound. Plainly visible across the intervening water on account of their enormous size were an array of bas-reliefs whose subjects would have excited the envy of Adore. I think that these things were supposed to depict men, at least. A certain sort of men. Though the creatures were shown disporting like fishes in the water of some marine grotto, or paying homage to certain monolithic shrine which appeared to be under the waves as well. Of their faces and forms I dare not speak in detail, for the mere remembrance makes me grow faint. Grotesque beyond the imagination of a Poe or a Bulwer, they were damningly human in general outline despite webbed hands and feet, shockingly wide and flappy lips, glassy, bulging eyes, and the features less pleasant to recall. Curiously enough, I seem to have the chiseled badly out of proportion with their scenic background, for one of the creatures was sewn in the act of killing a whale represented but as but larger than himself. I remarked, as I say, their grotesqueness and strange size, but in a moment decided they were merely imaginary gods of some primitive fishing or seafaring tribe. Some tribe whose last descendant had perished eras before the first ancestor of the Piltdown or Neanderthal man was born. Awestruck in this unexpected glimpse into a past beyond the conception of what most daring anthropologist, I stood musing while the moon cast queer reflections on the silent channel before me. Then suddenly I saw it. With only slight churning to mask its rise to the surface, the thing slid into view above the dark waters, vast, Polyphemus-like, and loathsome. It darted like a stupendous monster of nightmares to the monolith, about which it flung its gigantic scaly arms, the while it bowed its hideous head and gave vent to certain measured sounds. I think I went mad then. Of my frantic ascent of the slope and cliff and my delirious journey back to the stranded boat, I remember little. I believe I sang a great deal and laughed oddly when I was unable to sing. I have indistinct recollections of a great storm some time after I reached the boat. At any rate, I know that I heard pearls of thunder and other tones which nature utters only in wild and terrible moods, in which I came out of the shadows. I was in San Francisco Hospital. Brought thither, T-H-I-T-H-E-R, brought thither by the captain of the American ship which had picked up my boat in mid-ocean. In my delirium, I had said much, but found that my words had been given scant attention. Of any land upheaval in the Pacific, my rescuers knew nothing, nor did I deem it necessary to insist upon a thing which I knew they could not believe. Once I sought out a celebrated ethologist and amused him with peculiar questions regarding the ancient Philistine legend of Dagon, the fish god, but soon perceiving that he was hopelessly conventional, I did not press my inquiries. It is at night, especially when the moon is gibbous and waning. I don't know those words. They might sound strange to me. When I see the thing, I tried morphine, but the drug had given only transient surcease and has drawn me into clutches as a hopeless slave. So now I'm to end matters, having written a full account for the information or the contemptuous amusement of my fellow men. I often ask myself if it could not at all have been a pure phantasm, a mere freak of fever as I lay in sun-stricken and raving in the open boat after my escape from the German man-o'-war. This I ask myself, but ever does there come before me a hideously vivid vision in reply. I cannot think of the deep sea without shuddering at the nameless things that may be at this very moment be crawling and floundering on its slimy bed, worshipping their ancient stone idols and carving their own detestable likeness on submarine obelisks of water-soaked granite. I believe of a day when they may rise above the billows to drag down in their reeking talons and remnants of puny, a war-exhausted mankind, of a day where the land shall sink and the dark ocean floor shall ascend amidst universal pandemonium. The end is near. I hear a noise at the door, as of some immense slippery body lumbering against it. It shall not find me. God, that hand! The window! The window! And that is the first story called Dagon in H.P. Lovecraft Tales of Horror. I should do that more often. I don't know about you guys, but I enjoy that. And the fart kind of threw me off a little bit. But anyway, Brownmeister coming in. Oh man, g'day mate. 26 months, I guess we're reading another chapter. You know how it is, ladies and gentlemen. I need to get some sound effects. I need to get some sound effects to play in the background of this. Alrighty, you know how it is. What we're going to read, I was lurking for a bit, didn't want to interrupt. Well, Brownmeister, every time somebody subscribes now, I will read a story and chapter from this book. And I was going to jump off 30 minutes ago, but let's keep this going. I've got the next story, which is called The Statement of Randolph Carter. Now, how long does this one go for? Hello? How long does this one go for? How many pages? 5 pages. Okay, this one's going to be a good one. All right, this one's going to be a good one. This one's going to be a good one. Alrighty. Because I want to make sure that people who are subscribing to this channel are going to get something out of it besides just emotes. And what you're going to get is a story. That's what you're going to get. Alrighty. Let's read The Statement of Randolph Carter. I repeat to you, gentlemen, that in your inquisition is fruitless, Detain me here forever, if you will. Confine or execute me if you must. Have a victim oh my God, starting out of the gate really good. Propitiate, I don't know, the illusion that you call justice. But I can say no more than I have said already. Everything I can remember. I'm getting my feet tickled at the moment, aren't I? Hello. Do you want to join me for story time? You want to join me for story time? Hello. Anyway, we're reading the statement of Randolph Carter. And I'll start again. How do you say that word? No, it's not. Propitiate? 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 I don't know. I've never heard it before. Anyway.
Hello.
I repeat to you, gentlemen, that in your inquisition is fruitless. Detain me here forever, if you will. Confine or execute me if you must have a victim to whatever that word is, the illusion you call justice. But I can say no more that I have said already. Everything that I can remember, I have told with perfect candor. Nothing has been distorted or concealed. And if anything remains vague, it is only because of the dark cloud which has come over my mind. That cloud and the nebulous nature of the horrors which brought it upon me. Again, I say, I do not know of what has become of Harley Warren, though I think almost hope that he is in peaceful oblivion. If there be anywhere so blessed a thing, it is true that I have for 5 years been his closest friend, and a partial sharer of his terrible researches into the unknown. I will not deny, through my memory is uncertain and indistinct, that the witness of yours may be... Oh my God, I'm getting distracted. Of yours may have seen... No, it's fine. Have seen us together, as he says, on the Gainesville Pike, walking towards Big Cypress Swamp. At 11:30 on that awful night, that we bore electric lanterns and spades and the curious coil of wire which attached instruments. I will even affirm, for these things all played a part in the single hideous scene which remains burdened into my shaken recollection. But of what followed and the reason, I was found alone and dazed on the edge of the swamp the next morning. I must insist I knew nothing save what I have told you over and over again. You say to me that there is nothing in the swamp or near it what could form the setting of that frightful episode. I reply that I know nothing beyond what I saw. Vision or nightmare, it may have been. Vision or nightmare, I fear... Oh my God, there's some complex words in this that I haven't seen before. Fervently hope it was, yet it was all that my mind retains of what took place in those shocking hours after we left the sight of men. And why Harley Warren did not return, he or his shade, or some nameless thing, I cannot describe, alone can tell. As I've said before, the weird studies of Harley Warren were well known to me and to some extent shared by me. Of his vast collection of strange, rare books on forbidden subjects, I have read all that are written in the languages of which I master. But there are few as compared to those in languages I cannot understand. Most, I believe, are in Arabic, and the fiend-inspired books which brought on the end, the book which he carried in his pocket out of the world, was written in characters who, like I never saw elsewhere. Warren would never tell me what was in that book. As to the nature of our studies, I must say again that I no longer retain full comprehension. It seemed to me rather merciful that I do not know, as they were terrible studies in which I pursued through reluctant fascination than through actual inclination. Warren always dominated me, and sometimes I feared him. I remember how I shuddered at his facial expressions on the night before the awful happening, when he talked so incessantly of his theory. Why certain corpses never decay, but rest firm and lay fat, and their tombs for 1,000 years. But I do not fear him now, for I suspect that he has known the horrors beyond my ken. Now I fear for him. I got a while to go. You sticking around? Cool. You got time? Great. You got time, ladies and gentlemen? You got time? Sweet. Cool. We've got a little while to go because that was only 1 page out of 5. Once more, I say that I have no clear idea on our subject on that night. Certainly it had too much to do within the book which Warren carried with him. That ancient book in undecipherable characters which had come to him from India a month before. I swear I do not know what we expected to find. Your witness says he saw us 11:30 on the Gainesville Pike, headed for a big cypress swamp. You're not getting me this time. This is probably true, but I have no distinct memory of it. The picture seared into my soul as... Did you hear what they did?
I can see.
Yeah, you got me. You got me, Rage. What was I saying? I have no distinct memory of it. The picture seared into my soul is one of scene only, and the hour might have been long after midnight, for waning a crescent moon was high as vaporous heavens. The place was an ancient cemetery, so ancient that I trembled at the manifold signs of immemorial years. It was in a deep, damp hollow, overgrown with rank grass, moss, and curious weeping weeds, and filled with a vague stench which my idle fancy associated absurdly with rotting stone. On every hand there were signs of neglect and decrepitude, and I seemed haunted by the notion that Warren and I were the first living creatures to invade a lethal silence of centuries. Over the valley's rim, a wan waning crescent moon pierced through the noisome vapours that seemed to emanate from the unheard of catacombs, which by its feeble, wavering beams I could distinguish a repellent array of antique slabs, urns. Oh, man, there's some complex words in this one. Cenotaphs? What the hell is that? Mausoleum? Cenotaphs and mausoleum facades, all crumbling, moss-grown and moisture-stained, and partially concealed by the gross luxuriance of an unhealthy vegetation. My first vivid impression of my own presence in this terrible necropolis concerns the act of pausing which Warren before a certain half-obliterated Sepulchre. Sepulchre? I'm used to that word spelled different. Of throwing down some burdens which seemed to have been carrying. Now I observed that I had with me an electric lantern and 2 spades, whilst my companion was supplied with a similar lantern and a portable telephone outfit. No word was uttered, for the spot and the task seemed known to us, and without delay we seized our spades and commenced to clear away the grass, weeds, and drifted from the earth, flat, archaic mortuary. After uncovering the entire surface, which consisted of 3 immense granite slabs, we stepped back some distance to survey the charnel scene. And Warren appeared to make some mental calculations. Then he returned to the sepulchre, using his spade as a lever, sought to pry the slab lying nearest to a stony ruin which may have been a monument in its day, but he did not succeed, and motioned to me to come to assist. Finally, our combined strength loosened the stone, which we raised to tip to one side. The removal of the slab revealed a black aperture, of which rushed an effluence of mismeal gases so nauseous that we started back in horror. After an interval, however, we approached the pit again and found that the exhalations less unbearable. Our lanterns disclosed the top of a light and stone steps dripping with some detestable ichor of the inner earth, and bordered by moist walls encrusted with a niter. And now for the first time my memory recorded verbal discourse.
No.
Our lanterns disclosed the top light of stone steps dripping with some detestable ichor of the inner earth bordered by the moist walls encrusted with niter. Now for the first time in my memory records verbal discourse, Warren addressing me at the length in his mellow tenor voice, a voice singularly unpurported by the awesome surroundings. I'm sorry to have to ask you to stay on the surface, he said, but it would be a crime to let anyone...
Any video game ever, I'm still a better driver than Clark.
GG's, Brandmaster. That was a short one. I'm sorry to have to ask you to stay on the surface, he said, but it would be a crime to let anyone with your frail nerves go down there. You can't imagine, even from what you have read and from what I've told you, that the things I shall have to see and do, it's fiendish work, Carter, and I doubt if any man would be an ironclad sensibilities would ever see it through and come up alive and sane. I do not wish to offend you, and heaven knows be glad enough to have you with me, but the responsibility is certain sense mine. And I couldn't drag you, a bundle of nerves like you, down the probable death or madness. I tell you, you can't imagine what the thing is really like. But I promise to keep you informed over the telephone of every move. You see, I have enough wire here to reach the center of the earth and back. And back. I can still hear in memory those coolly spoken words, and I still remember my remonstrances. I seemed desperately anxious to accompany my friend into the sepulchral depths. Yet he proved inflexibly obdurate. At one time, he threatened to abandon the expedition if I remained insistent, a threat which proved effective, since he alone held the key to the thing. All I can still remember, though I no longer know what manner of the thing we sought, after he had secured my reluctant acquiescence? You ever seen that word before? Acquiescence? In his design. Warren picked up the reel of wire and adjusted the instruments. At his nod, I took one of the latter and seated myself upon an aged, discoloured gravestone, close by the newly uncovered aperture. He then shook my hand, shouldered the coil of wire, and disappeared within the indescribable ossuary. For a moment I kept sight of a glow of his lantern, and heard the rustle of the wire as he laid it down after him. But the glow soon disappeared, abruptly, as if a turn in the stone staircase had been encountered, and the sound died away almost as quickly. I was alone, yet bound to the unknown depths by those magic strands whose insalted surface lay green beneath the struggling beams of that waning crescent moon. In the lone silence of that hoary and deserted city of the dead, my mind conceived the most ghastly fantasies and illusions, and the grotesque shrines of monoliths that seemed to assume a hideous personality. A half-sentience, amorphous shadows seemed to lurk in the darker recesses of the weed-choked hollow, and to flit in some blasphemous ceremonial procession past the portals of the mouldering tombs. In the hillside, shadows which could not have been cast by that pallid, peered crescent moon. I constantly consulted my watch by the light of my electric lantern, and listened with feverish anxiety at the receiver of the telephone, but for more than a quarter of an hour heard nothing. Then a faint clicking came from the instrument. I called down to my friend in a tense voice. Apprehensive as I was nevertheless unprepared for the words which came up from that uncally vault in accents, more alarmed and quivering than any that I've heard from Harley Warren before. He who had so calmly left me a little while previously now called from below in a shaky whisper, more portentous than the loudest shriek. God, if you could only see what I'm seeing! I could not answer, speechless. I could only wait. Then he came, the frenzied tones again. Carter! It's terrible, monstrous, unbelievable! In this time, my voice did not fail me. I poured into the transmitter the flood of excited questions. Terrified, I continued to repeat, Warren, what is it? What is it? Once more came the voice of my friend, still hoarse with fear, and now apparently tinged with despair. I can't tell you, Carter. It's too utterly beyond thought. I dare not tell you. No man could know it and live, great God. I never dreamed of this. Stillness again, save for now my incoherent torrent of shuddering inquiry. Then the voice of Warren in a pitch of wilder consternation. Carter, for the love of God, put back the slab and get out of this if you can. Quick! Leave everything else. Make for the outside. It's your only chance. Do as I say and don't ask me to explain.
Bye.
Okay, bye, bitch. I heard, yet was only able to repeat my frantic questions. Around me were the tombs and the darkness and the shadows below me, some peril beyond the radius of human imagination. But my friend was in greater danger than I, though I fear that I felt a vague resentment that should deem me capable of deserting him under such circumstances. More clicking, and after a pause, a piteous cry from Warren. Beat it! For God's sake, put the slab and beat it, Carter! Something in the boyish slang of my evidently stricken companion unleashed my faculties. I formed and shouted the resolution. Warren, brace up, I'm coming down! But at this offer, the tone of my auditor changed to a scream of utter despair. Don't, you can't understand, it's too late and my own fault! Put the slab back and run! There's nothing else you or anyone can do now!
Dylan, you son of a bitch.
The tone changed again, and this time acquiring a softer quality, as of hopeless resignation, yet it remained tense through anxiety for me. Quick, before it's too late! I tried not to heed him, tried to break through the paralysis which held me, and to fulfill my vow to rush down to his aid. But his next whisper found me, still held inert in the chains of a stark horror. Carter, hurry! It's no use! You must go! Better than two, the slab! A pause, more clicking than a faint voice of Warren. Nearly over now. Don't make it harder. Cover up those damn steps and run for your life. You're losing time. So long, Carter. Won't see you again. Here's Warren's whisper, swelled into a cry that gradually rose to a shriek, fraught with the horror of the ages. Curse these hellish things. Legions, my God. Beat it! Beat it! Beat it! After that was silence. I know not how many interminable eons I sat stupefied, whispering, muttering, calling, screaming into that telephone. Over and over again. Those eons, I whispered. I read that again. And there came to me the crowning horror of all. The unbelievable, unthinkable, most unmentionable thing. I have said that eons seemed to have elapsed after Warren shrieked forth his last despairing warning, that only my own cries now broke the hideous silence. After a while, there was a further clicking in the receiver. I restrained my ears to listen. Again, I called down, Warren, are you there? And in answer I heard, the thing, which brought this cloud over my mind. I do not try, gentlemen, to account for that thing, that voice, nor can I venture to describe it in detail, since the first words took away my consciousness and created a mental blank which reaches to the time of my awakening in the hospital. Shall I say that the voice was deep, hollow, gelatinous, remote, unearthly, inhumane, disembodied? What shall I say? It was at the end of my experience and at the end of my story. I heard it and knew no more. Heard it as I sat petrified that in the unknowing cemetery, in the hollow amidst the crumbling stones and the falling tombs, the rank vegetation and the miasmal vapours, I heard it well from the innermost depths of the damnable open sepulchre. I watched as amorphous, necrophagous shadows dance beneath the accursed warning moon. And this is what it said. You fool, Warren is dead. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the story of Warren going into somewhere he shouldn't be with a thing that he should not be with. Thank you very much, Rage. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. That's fun. I like doing that. There's a lot of words in there I'm not familiar with. But we shall be back another day to read more of this next time we get subs. But for now, ladies and gentlemen, it is time for me to wrap it up because I want to go spend a little bit of time outside. So we'll send you over to Snitsy, currently playing a bit of Hell Let Loose, another Aussie streamer who pops into this channel every now and then. There's currently an ad break, so they can't even see it anyway. Good to see you too, Terra Billie Jean. Thank you for dropping in at the last minute. Thank you for that sub as well. And thank you for kicking off the book, LoveCraft Tales of Horror. Really appreciate that. But enjoy yourselves, have a good day, and we'll catch us in the next one. Peace. Where's the button? Where's the button? There it is.